Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is a tough one. It's personal, it's raw, and honestly, it's something that completely blindsided me and turned my world upside down. Imagine building a life with someone, pouring your heart, your soul, your future into that relationship, only to have the floor ripped out from under you with words that feel like daggers. That's what happened to me. My wife, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, the woman I'd planned forever with, she looked me dead in the eyes one evening and dropped a bombshell that shattered everything I thought was real. It wasn't even a fight that led to it, which almost made it worse. It was quiet. Too quiet. We were just existing in the same space, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. I could feel something was off, had been for weeks, maybe months, but I kept telling myself it was stress, work, the usual ups and downs. You know how you do that? You rationalize, you make excuses, because the alternative is too terrifying to consider. But that night, the quiet was different. It was heavy, suffocating. I finally asked her what was wrong, braced for an argument, maybe about chores or money, the typical stuff. But what she said, it wasn't typical. Not even close. She just stared at me, her expression unreadable at first, then slowly hardening into something I didn't recognize. It was cold, detached. "I need to be honest with you," she started, and my stomach plummeted. Those words are never followed by good news, are they? Never. "I don't think I'm happy," she continued, her voice low, almost monotone. "Okay, I thought, we can work with this. We can talk about it, figure it out. Couples therapy, a vacation, more date nights." My mind was already racing through solutions. But then she delivered the killing blow. "And I don't think I ever really loved you." Boom. Just like that. The air left my lungs. The room started spinning. Never loved me? Not "I don't love you anymore," which would have been devastating enough, but never? It felt like a negation of our entire history. Our wedding day, the anniversaries, the late-night talks, the inside jokes, the struggles we'd overcome together. Was it all a lie? A performance? My mind couldn't process it. It was like trying to compute an impossible equation. How could she stand there, say that, after everything? The casual cruelty of it, the way she delivered it like she was commenting on the weather, it broke something inside me. I remember just staring at her, searching her face for any sign that this was a mistake, a cruel joke, anything but the truth. But there was nothing, just that chilling emptiness in her eyes. What are you saying?" I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. "How can you say that? Our life, everything." She shrugged, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement, but it felt like a physical blow. "I don't know," she said. "I thought I did. I tried. But looking back, I think I love the idea of us, the stability, maybe even you as a person, a friend. But in love? That feeling everyone talks about. I don't think I ever felt that for you." Every word was calculated, precise, designed to inflict maximum damage. Or maybe it wasn't designed at all. Maybe that was worse, that she could dismantle our life with such casual indifference. I felt a surge of anger then, hot and fierce, bubbling up through the shock and pain. So what? Our entire marriage, years of my life, it was all pretend? You were just going through the motions. "Not intentionally," she said, finally looking away, unable to meet my gaze. "I convinced myself it was real. I wanted it to be real. But I can't lie to myself anymore. Or to you. It's not fair to either of us. Not fair. Not fair." The hypocrisy was staggering. She was talking about fairness now, after years of alleged deceit. The conversation, if you could call it that, didn't get much better. She talked about needing space, about needing to find herself. Clichés, empty words that meant everything and nothing. She couldn't give me concrete reasons, just vague feelings of dissatisfaction, of wanting more, whatever that meant. Was there someone else? I asked point blank. She denied it, but her denial felt hollow, practiced. At that point, did it even matter? The core issue wasn't if there was someone else, but the foundation-shattering revelation that, according to her, our love story was a work of fiction she'd written herself out of. I felt numb. Utterly, devastatingly numb. Like I was watching a movie of my life falling apart, and I was just a spectator. Part of me wanted to scream, to rage, to throw things. Another part wanted to curl up into a ball and disappear. And yet another, ridiculously, pathetically, wanted to beg her to take it back, to say she didn't mean it, that she was just confused or angry. But her coldness was a wall I couldn't breach. It was clear she had made up her mind long before this conversation. This wasn't a discussion, it was a verdict. In the days that followed, I moved in a haze. We occupied the same house, but lived in separate universes. The silence was deafening now, filled with unspoken accusations and the ghost of what I thought we had. She seemed almost relieved. Lighter. While I felt like I was carrying the weight of the world. Every shared object, every photograph, every memory was tainted, viewed through the new, horrific lens of her confession. Was she faking it in that picture? Was she thinking about her lack of love during that holiday? It was mental torture. I knew I couldn't stay like that. Living with the ghost of a relationship. Living with someone who claimed to have never loved me. It was soul-destroying. I needed to protect myself, whatever shred of self-worth I had left. So, I made a decision. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but it felt necessary. I told her I couldn't live in limbo. If she needed space, if she truly felt this way, then she needed to take the space. Properly. I wasn't going to be her safety net while she found herself. I wasn't going to be the comfortable option she could fall back on if her quest for more didn't pan out. I told her I was moving out, that I needed to start processing this, and I couldn't do it living under the same roof, constantly reminded of the lie I'd apparently been living. Her reaction surprised me. There was a flicker of something, panic? Regret? In her eyes for a split second, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. She just nodded. Okay, she said quietly. If that's what you need. And just like that, it was decided. The logistics were a blur, finding a temporary place, packing boxes filled with shared memories that now felt like artifacts from a stranger's life. Each item I packed felt like another stab wound. The mugs we bought on our honeymoon. The framed photo from our first anniversary. The stupid novelty gift I got her that always made her laugh. Or did it? Did she ever really laugh? Or was that part of the act too? The questions swirled, relentless, poisoning everything. As I packed the last box, ready to walk out the door of the home we built together, a strange sense of calm washed over the pain. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was resolve. I was taking a step, however painful, towards reclaiming myself. I was choosing not to be a victim of her narrative. I refused to beg, refused to plead for scraps of affection from someone who claimed they never had any to give in the first place. I decided, right then and there, that I wouldn't chase her. I wouldn't call, I wouldn't text, I wouldn't stalk her social media. I would give her exactly what she said she wanted. Space. Absolute, complete, deafening space. I turned to look at her one last time, standing by the window, silhouetted against the afternoon light. She looked small, uncertain, but still distant. I didn't say goodbye. I just walked out, closing the door softly behind me. The click of the latch echoed in the sudden silence, sounding impossibly final. I remember thinking, as I walked away from the life I knew, that this was the end of one chapter. A brutal, heart-wrenching end. Little did I know, this decision, this act of stepping back and letting go, wasn't really the end. It was just the catalyst for the next, even more unbelievable chapter. A chapter where the tables would turn so dramatically, so unexpectedly, that even now, it feels surreal. Because the silence I was creating? She was about to find out just how loud it could be. And months later, the woman who claimed she never loved me would be the one desperately trying to break it. What was coming next? Honestly, I had no idea, but I knew one thing for sure. The path forward was mine alone now, or so I thought. The real storm was yet to break. So I walked away, closed that door, and stepped into, well, I didn't know what. The first few weeks were pure survival mode. Finding a new routine, navigating the crushing weight of loneliness, trying to silence the endless loop of her words. I never really loved you. It played in my head constantly, a soundtrack to the mundane tasks of setting up a new, solitary life. There were nights I couldn't sleep, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, wondering where it all went wrong, replaying every moment, searching for clues I'd missed. The anger was still there, a simmering rage beneath the surface, but mostly it was just this profound, hollow ache. An emptiness where my future used to be. I threw myself into work, into exercise, into reconnecting with friends I'd maybe neglected a bit during the marriage. Anything to fill the void, anything to stop the thoughts from consuming me. I stuck to my decision. No contact. Zero. I deleted her number, though I knew it by heart. I blocked her on social media, not out of spite, initially, but for self-preservation. I couldn't bear the thought of seeing her potentially happy, potentially finding herself, while I was picking up the pieces of the life she'd detonated. It felt like pouring salt on an open wound. For a while, there was nothing. Silence. Exactly the space she'd claimed she wanted. And honestly, a tiny, treacherous part of me expected her to reach out sooner. Maybe not to reconcile, but just to check in, to show some semblance of human decency after shattering my reality. But there was nothing. And that silence, ironically, started to do its work. It hurt like hell, don't get me wrong. It confirmed, in a way, her indifference. But it also forced me to stand on my own 2 feet. It forced me to confront the reality that the life I had was gone, and the only way forward was to build a new one, brick by painful brick. I started focusing on myself, really focusing. Not in a finding myself cliché way like she claimed, but in a rebuilding my damn self way. I started setting boundaries in other areas of my life. I reevaluated my priorities. I started to see glimpses of the person I was before the relationship, the person I'd kind of lost along the way while trying so hard to be the perfect husband to someone who, apparently, never truly wanted one. There were good days and bad days, of course. Days where the grief was overwhelming, days where the anger flared up. But slowly, painstakingly, I started to feel not okay. Maybe, but stronger. More like myself. The numbness began to recede, replaced by a clearer sense of who I was and what I deserved. And then, just as I was starting to find some semblance of equilibrium, maybe 3 or 4 months after I'd left, the silence broke. It started subtly. A missed call from a number I didn't have saved, but knew instinctively was hers. I ignored it. Then another a few days later. Ignored. Then a tentative text message. Hey, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay. Okay? Was she serious? I wanted to type back 1,000 furious responses, but I didn't. I deleted it. Silence was my only weapon, my only shield. But she didn't stop. The texts became more frequent, longer. I've been thinking about you. I miss talking to you. Still, I held firm. What did she expect? That after dropping that bomb and effectively ghosting me while I rebuilt my life from the ashes, I just jumped back into casual conversation? The audacity was infuriating. It fueled my resolve. Every ignored call, every deleted text, felt like a small victory, a reclamation of power in a situation where I'd felt utterly powerless. Then came the shift. The tone changed from tentative check-ins to something more desperate. The apologies started trickling in. I'm sorry for how things ended. I handled things terribly. I was confused. Confused? That wasn't the word she used that night. The word she used was never. It was etched into my brain. Her apologies felt hollow, self-serving. Was she just feeling lonely now? Did her quest for more lead to a dead end? Did the reality of the space she demanded turn out to be colder and emptier than she anticipated? The internal conflict was intense. Part of me, the part that still remembered the good times, or what I thought were good times, felt a flicker of something. Pity? Lingering attachment? A morbid curiosity about what she really wanted? But the other part, the stronger part, the part forged in the fire of her rejection, screamed betrayal. It reminded me of the coldness in her eyes, the casual cruelty of her words. Never loved you. How do you come back from that? How do you rebuild trust on a foundation that she herself declared was built on sand? And then came the plot twist I never saw coming. It wasn't just texts or calls anymore. She showed up, unannounced, at my new place. I opened the door after work one evening, expecting a delivery guy, and there she was, standing on my doorstep, looking different, thinner, eyes red-rimmed, tear tracks on her cheeks. Gone was the cold, detached woman who had ended our marriage. This was someone who looked broken. Can we please talk? She whispered, her voice trembling. I was stunned into silence for a moment. Seeing her there, so vulnerable, was jarring. It threw me off balance. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let her in. The air crackled with tension. She stood awkwardly in the middle of my small living room, looking around at the unfamiliar surroundings, the evidence of my new, separate life. And then she started talking, pouring out apologies, regrets, explanations that still felt flimsy but were delivered with genuine tears this time. She said she'd made a terrible mistake, that she hadn't realized what she had until it was gone, that the space had been a disaster, that she'd been lonely, miserable. She talked about missing me, missing our life, missing me. It was a complete 180 from the woman who couldn't stand the sight of me months earlier. And then came the words I never, ever thought I'd hear from her lips, especially not after, I never really loved you. She looked me straight in the eye, tears streaming down her face, and said, "I was wrong. I do love you. I think I always did. I was just scared, confused, stupid. Please, can we try again? Please come back. I can't do this without you." There it was, the begging, the desperate plea for reconciliation from the very person who had insisted reconciliation was impossible because the fundamental ingredient, love, from her side, had never existed. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. My mind was reeling. Was this real? Was she genuine? Or was this just another manipulation? Fear of being alone? Realization that the single life wasn't the romantic adventure she'd imagined? I felt a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, confusion, pity, a strange, bitter sense of vindication, and yes, underneath it all, a stubborn, persistent flicker of the old affection I thought I'd extinguished. Seeing her cry, seeing her desperation, it chipped away at the wall I'd built. But the memory of her original words, the sheer depth of that betrayal, held firm. Was I ready to forgive? Could I ever truly trust her again? Part of me wanted to believe her, to rewind time, to grasp at the chance of getting our life back. But the other part, the part that had clawed its way out of the wreckage, knew that things could never be the same. The trust wasn't just broken, it had been declared non-existent from the start by her own admission. How do you rebuild on that? She reached out, her hand trembling, towards mine. "Please," she choked out again. "Give us another chance. I'll do anything." I looked at her hand, then back into her tear-filled eyes. The power dynamic had completely flipped. Months ago, I was the one left reeling, powerless. Now, the ball was entirely in my court. She was the one begging, the one desperate for a second chance. And in that moment, I realized I had a choice. Not just about whether to take her back, but about how I wanted to proceed. Did I want revenge? Did I want to make her feel even a fraction of the pain she'd inflicted on me? Or did I want peace? Closure? The opportunity was right there. I could have twisted the knife. I could have reminded her of every cold word, every dismissive shrug. I could have made her grovel. And believe me, a part of me, the wounded part, was tempted. It felt like a chance to reclaim some sense of justice, to make her understand the devastation she'd caused. It wasn't necessarily about malicious revenge, but about balance. About making her feel the consequences. I stood there, caught in the cross-currents of past pain and present pleas. Her tear-streaked face, her desperate hope, contrasted sharply with the image of her cold indifference just months before. What was I going to do? Let her back in? Slam the door in her face? Make her pay? The decision felt monumental, heavy with the weight of everything we'd been through, and everything she claimed we hadn't. As I looked at her, waiting, hanging on my every breath, I couldn't help but wonder, what path would truly lead to healing? And would she ever grasp the magnitude of what she'd broken? The next words out of my mouth would change everything again. But this time, I was the one holding the pen. So there she was, in my apartment, the place that represented my forced independence, begging me to undo everything, begging for a return to a life she herself had declared a sham. The air was thick with her tears and my unresolved turmoil. That moment stretched, feeling like an eternity. Her hopeful, desperate eyes locked on mine, waiting for my verdict. The power shift was palpable, almost dizzying. The woman who held all the cards, who coolly informed me I was never loved, was now completely vulnerable, her future seemingly hanging on my decision. And in that moment, something crystallized within me. It wasn't a sudden surge of forgiveness, nor was it a burning desire for petty revenge. It was clarity, hard-earned, painful clarity. I realized that taking her back wouldn't fix the fundamental wound. Her saying, "I love you now," couldn't erase the "I never loved you then." Even if she was telling the truth now, and that was a massive if, how could I ever believe her again? Every compliment, every "I love you," every shared moment would forever be shadowed by doubt. Was this real? Or was she just saying what I wanted to hear, what she needed now to feel secure again? The foundation was irredeemably cracked. I thought about the pain, the sleepless nights, the gut-wrenching process of rebuilding myself from the ground up. I thought about the future I had started to tentatively imagine for myself, a future based on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine affection. Could she ever truly be a part of that? Could I risk going through that devastation all over again? The answer, echoing deep within my gut, was a resounding no. But I didn't want to be cruel like she had been. I didn't need to inflict pain to feel validated. My validation came from surviving what she did, from finding my strength when I felt broken. My revenge, if you could call it that, wasn't about hurting her back. It was about choosing myself. It was about showing her, and more importantly, showing myself, that my happiness was no longer contingent on her approval or her presence. My revenge was living well without her. I took a deep breath, the first steady one since she'd arrived. "I hear you," I said, my voice calmer than I expected. "I hear the apologies, I see the tears. And maybe you do feel differently now. Maybe you regret what you did, what you said." Her face lit up with a fragile hope. "I do, more than anything." "But," I continued, holding up a hand gently to stop her eager interruption, "that doesn't change what happened. It doesn't erase the words you said, and it doesn't erase the fact that you were capable of saying them, of living that way, apparently, for years." I saw the hope flicker and dim in her eyes. "You told me you never loved me. You didn't say you fell out of love, or you were confused at the time. You made a definitive statement about our entire past. You fundamentally rewrote our history, our marriage, from your perspective." "I wasn't thinking clearly," she protested, tears welling up again. "I was unhappy. I was projecting. I said things I didn't mean." "Maybe," I conceded. "But the trust," Sarah, using her name, felt strange, distant. "The trust is gone. Not just dented, not just cracked. It's pulverized. How could I ever look at you and not wonder if you're being honest? How could I ever feel secure knowing that you could, potentially, feel one way and act another for years on end? You didn't just break my heart. You broke my ability to trust you. And I don't know how to rebuild that. I don't even know if I want to try." She started sobbing then, deep, racking sobs. "But people make mistakes. Don't I deserve a second chance? Don't we deserve one?" That was the question, wasn't it? Did we deserve a second chance? Or did I deserve a chance at a future free from the shadow of that profound betrayal? "Everyone deserves a chance to learn and grow from their mistakes," I said carefully. "And I truly hope you do. I hope you figure out what you want and why you do the things you do. For your own sake. But a second chance for us? That implies there's something solid to return to. You told me there wasn't. You told me the foundation itself was a lie." I wasn't yelling. I wasn't angry anymore. Just sad. And resolute. "I spent months putting myself back together after you shattered me. I had to mourn a life I thought was real. I had to rebuild my self-worth from zero. And I'm finally in a place where I'm starting to heal, where I'm starting to look forward again. Going back, it feels like stepping back into the fire." "I won't hurt you again," she pleaded. "I swear." "You can't promise that," I said softly. "You couldn't even promise it to yourself before. Look, I don't hate you. I'm past the raw anger. But I can't go back. I can't live with that doubt, that insecurity. It wouldn't be fair to either of us in the long run. It would poison everything." I could see the finality dawning on her face, the slow, painful acceptance that her pleas weren't working. The tears subsided into a quiet despair. She just stood there, looking defeated. And in that moment, I didn't feel triumph or satisfaction. Just a profound sense of tragedy for what was lost and what could never be recovered. Then, something unexpected happened. A final twist, but an internal one for her, perhaps. She took a shaky breath and seemed to gather herself. "You're right," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion but strangely clear. "You're right. I did break it. Irreparably. And saying sorry now, wanting you back now, it doesn't fix the damage I caused. I was selfish. I was cruel. And I was terrified." "Terrified of what?" I asked, genuinely curious now. "Of admitting I did love you, maybe," she said, looking down at her hands. "Admitting that the life we had was good, but that I was the one messing it up because I didn't feel worthy of it, or because I got scared it wouldn't last. So I blew it up first. I told myself I never loved you because it was easier than admitting I had something precious and I was too afraid or too screwed up to handle it. It was easier to blame the lack of love than to blame myself. It was a bombshell confession, different from the earlier pleas. It didn't change my decision, but it shifted the narrative slightly. It didn't excuse her actions, not by a long shot, but it offered a glimpse into the flawed, frightened human behind the monstrous words. It painted a picture not just of betrayal, but of self-sabotage on a catastrophic scale. "I understand," I said quietly. And for the first time, maybe I did, a little. It didn't lessen the pain she caused, but it made it tragically human. "But understanding doesn't change the consequences, Sarah." I've moved on. I have to. For my own sanity. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I know. I needed to say it. And I needed you to know. I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Not just because I'm lonely now, but because I destroyed something good. And I destroyed you in the process. I'll live with that regret forever. That felt real. More real than the begging. It felt like the beginning of her own painful reckoning. There was nothing left to say after that. The air was heavy with unspoken grief, but also with a strange sense of closure. I walked her to the door. She paused on the threshold, turned back one last time. Take care of yourself, she murmured. You too, Sarah, I replied. And then she was gone. I closed the door, leaning my forehead against the cool wood. Relief washed over me, mingled with a deep, lingering sadness. It wasn't the triumphant slam the door in her face moment some might crave. It wasn't the sweet revenge payoff. But it felt right. It felt like peace. It felt like choosing my own future over a poisoned past. Walking away from her the first time was about survival. This second time, letting her walk away after her confession and pleas felt like liberation. The power wasn't in hurting her back. It was in recognizing my own worth and refusing to settle for a love riddled with doubt and deceit, even if she now claimed it was real. The journey wasn't easy. Healing is never linear. There were still moments of reflection, moments of what if. But her final, more honest confession, paradoxically, helped solidify my decision. It confirmed that the problem wasn't just her feelings for me, but her own internal battles that had devastating collateral damage. I couldn't fix her, and it wasn't my job to try, especially after the way she broke things. In the end, I learned that trust, once fundamentally shattered by a declaration like, I never loved you, is perhaps the hardest thing to rebuild, maybe even impossible. And sometimes, the strongest, most self-loving thing you can do is accept that, let go, and walk towards a future where you know you are valued, not one where you constantly have to question it. Choosing myself wasn't an act of revenge against her. It was an act of respect towards myself. And that, I realized, was the most satisfying conclusion of all. And that brings us to the end of today's story. Thank you so much for tuning in. I truly hope to see you again for more fascinating tales ahead. If you enjoyed it, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our next adventure. See you soon.